How's it going, guys? My name is Tavarish and you're joining me in front of my Lamborghini Gallardo Spyder. It is a little bit dismantled at the moment. Today we're going to try to fix a part that would cost me $8,000 if I were to buy it new, but since I don't want to spend that kind of money, we're going to try to fix it for free. Now, for those of you new to my channel, thank you very much for tuning in, and I hope you guys like it. Subscribe if you like what you see. This monstrosity that lay behind me is my 2008 Lamborghini Gallardo Spyder. It has twin turbos, well, not right now. It has a built engine, has a 6-speed manual gated shifter, which makes it really cool and really desirable, and I bought it for $64,000 with a ton of issues. So in my last video, I told you guys about a problem I was having with this car. It couldn't get into gear when the car was on, and the problem lay with this. Actually, come a little closer. So this thing right here is where the clutch lives. Now the clutch is the only thing in the car that basically separates the transmission and the engine. It disengages it. So when you shift gears, it's basically doing that work. That's what's actually allowing you to shift instead of grinding. So this thing is called a flywheel, and the flywheel is basically what the clutch grabs onto on the engine. Now this is connected to the crankshaft. Crankshaft spins, the clutch grabs onto it, and then it connects the transmission, and that creates forward motion. Mine was not disengaging and engaging. Actually, it was engaged 100% of the time. And this is all that's left because I took off the clutch. We're gonna get to that in a second. But what you can see right here is that there is a bit of corrosion on this flywheel. Now, I'm not sure where the corrosion happened. I think it's just because this car was stored in a dismantler's yard and there was rain and it was probably left open. And yeah, it didn't do it any favors. There are a bunch of open ports on the transmission, and water could have gotten in basically anywhere, and it just made this really dirty. And the reason why the clutch wasn't disengaging was because it was rusted shut. It wasn't rusted that badly. I did get it off with a little pry tool, but with this, I definitely need to clean it up before I use it again. So usually flywheels like this need to be resurfaced when you're doing any sort of work to them. The only problem with that is the fact that this flywheel is attached to a multi-disc clutch, and every shop around my area would not touch multi-disc clutches. They would not resurface them. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna try to clean it up. I mean, I can't make it any worse. Honestly, there aren't that many hot spots. Hot spots are bluish tint on this this shiny face, and there aren't any grooves, which is actually really good. It seems like it's a smooth finish. It's just been kind of corroded, so I'm gonna clean this up. But we're actually working a little bit backwards because this is the last part I wanna clean. The first part I wanna clean is a clutch, so let me show you that. So these little rusty johnnies here are the innards of the spec clutch. Now this is a twin disc clutch, meaning that there's two clutch discs. One right here, this is one, and this is the other one. Now they attach in here in the housing, and they are separated by this. It's called a floater plate. So what happens is you have this, which basically acts like a second flywheel, and the clutch, one part of the clutch goes here, floater plate, and then the second part. Now, mine is a little bit worse for the wear. This is a new-ish clutch. I did figure out that this only has about 1,000 miles on it. The problem is when these things are stored and sometimes they get water on them, they start to look like this. And this is not a good look at all because honestly, it's not the worst thing in the world, because just as brake rotors, they tend to rust after a while, you know, if you leave them out in the rain, and then you just drive them once and then they all become nice and shiny again. It's the same thing with clutches, but I don't want this material, this friction material, to get contaminated. So what we're gonna do today is I'm just gonna go over this with some brake cleaner and a soft bristle brush. Now this is a brass brush. I just bought it from Harbor Freight, and this should get off a lot of that scale without actually digging into the metal, because if I start digging into the metal, then I create rough spots, and that's where the clutch grabs a little harder, makes heat, and that's what we don't want. Also, if I dig in too much to the metal, then I'll have to actually resurface it and rebalance it, because all this stuff is very, very balanced. So I just want to make sure this is clean, and hopefully all we have to do is put some elbow grease on it. We'll make it look as new as possible, then we'll slap it into the car, and hopefully this thing should work. So let's take a look at this. I'm just gonna give it a nice once over with brake clean. And take a look at that. It's already working Actually, it's working pretty good. You can see that it's getting some of the dirt off. Obviously, we're gonna have to go over this with some of the wire brushes. But look at that. Look at how dirty it was. All right, so now comes the part where I have to inject a ton of elbow grease. All right, let's begin. All right, now our clutch is a lot cleaner. It is definitely not 100% clean. I definitely can't get a lot of this this heat scoring off, but it is smooth to the touch, and it's gonna be good enough for, well, basically to put in the car. So what I did was I just cleaned this up, cleaned all the corrosion off, and there is, you know, there are some heat marks here, but I'm not gonna worry about that too much because I don't wanna take off too much material. Taking off too much material on a clutch like this would potentially be disastrous because they measure these things in thousandths of an inch. So I definitely just wanna take off that top layer of rust. So here is the first clutch disc, and what I did was I cleaned it with this soft bristle brass brush. I just got that from Harbor Freight. And take a look at this. It actually looks like it's in great shape, and it has plenty of life left on it. It's nowhere near the rivets. That's actually how you measure how much clutch left you have. It's not even past these little ridges here. So this was used very, very sparingly. According to a guy that knew the build of this car, this was only used for about 1,000 miles. So I should have a good life left in this clutch. Now this goes on the trans side right here. So the trans side would go down like this. Then we have the floater plate. I would like to clean it up a little more, just because it is kind of dirty and it has all these this heat markings. Honestly, I'm not too concerned about it because when I get it heated up, it's gonna make its own scoring marks. So we put that right here. And this is the second clutch disc. This is the flywheel side. And again, this has plenty of life left on it. And I cleaned it up as best I could. Obviously, it's not 100% clean, but it is corrosion free. That's exactly what we want. And we put it on like this. We have the sticker on the flywheel side out like this. And this should be good to go. Now, I'm not gonna put this in the car right now because I still have to clean the flywheel, which is basically the same process. I'm just gonna use this wire brush and just clean it off with, I'm gonna polish it with the steel wool. But I don't have the clutch alignment tool. And the clutch alignment tool is very necessary for something like this because you have to align not only this plate, but also this plate underneath. And if either one of these are out of alignment and then you clamp it down, basically this is gonna be off kilter and these bolts can shear. So that's where a lot of people have issues, especially with spec clutches, because their rivets right here, they tend to shear when they're not aligned 100% properly. So I did get a clutch alignment tool, it's on its way. So the next thing I'm gonna do is clean up these bolts. These are the bolts that hold this clutch onto the flywheel, and I just dropped a washer. But since I use my handy dandy bolt measure tool here, I know that these are M6 by 1.0, and I'm going to chase the threads, and I'm also going to clean this up with my wire wheel. So these should look brand new, and I also don't want to have any corrosion here because corrosion starts eating into the bolt, and then we definitely don't want one of these snapping because then some major damage can happen. So instead of getting new ones, I'll just clean up these because they look pretty good. All right, so we are done. The clutch is clean, at least a lot cleaner than it used to be. And it should be really, really good for my budget Lambo. Now, I'm not gonna put this on right now because I'm not gonna slap on the transmission now, because I got an interesting email from a guy that was really close to the build of this car, the original build. And he told me that after the fire happened, that the insurance, when they were taking everything out, they might have messed something up in the gas tank. And the gas tank in this car has to be accessed only when you take out the engine. Now, that means that I might be pulling an engine in the next episode. So it's like 4 things I have to do from this spot right now. So I think in the next episode, we are gonna be pulling an engine out of a Lamborghini. That's gonna be interesting, and I'm gonna be very anxious and kind of excited. I've never done that, and I'm interested in seeing if that fuel tank is actually messed up. So I want you guys to be there as well. But this is done. The flywheel is done. Again, this is not like a new condition. This is just usable condition, and I think it should be fine. We didn't take off any material from the friction plates. We didn't take off any material from the pressure plate or the flywheel. We just removed some surface corrosion, and that's something that anybody can do. And the best part about it is this $5,000 clutch. I know I said $8,000. $8,000 clutches are the other ones, like the high-tech exotic clutches. Those are $8,000. These are actually $5,000. But this $5,000 clutch, we ended up fixing it for $0. So yeah, any of you that want to do something like this, you can definitely do it at home. Also, take my advice with a grain of salt, because I haven't actually put it in, and I haven't actually seen if it works or not, but I think it will. So that's gonna be it for today. Hopefully you'll join me tomorrow when I have to maybe take out an engine. If you want to contact me, you can do so by reaching me at @TheRealTavarish. That is Instagram and Twitter. Facebook.com/AskTavarish and AskTavarish@gmail.com is my email, and I do read every single one. There have been a lot of you over the past week asking about this car and giving me well wishes. I appreciate every single one of you. Thank you so much. But until next time, this is me telling you that on cars like this with expensive clutches that get fixed for nothing at all, you guys need to wrench every day.